Good afternoon, Your Excellency, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Welcome to the conference, Serbia's Environmental Action Plan for EU Accession and Possibilities for Support from Hungary, organized by the Hungarian Embassy in Belgrade, along with the Institute for Foreign Affairs and Trade, think tank of the Hungarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The conference is only in digital format due to the pandemic background. It is only in English. It is a recorded event because it will be uploaded to the Future of Europe conference homepage, and you will find it in the YouTube channel of the Institute for Foreign Affairs and Trade soon. As an opening of the conference, I would give the floor to our keynote speaker and host today, His Excellency Attila Pintér, Ambassador of Hungary in Serbia. Please.
Köszönöm szépen, Péter. Thank you, Peter. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to our webinar and to initiate the conference on Serbia's Environmental Action Plan for EU accession and possibilities for support from Hungary. I would like to welcome all participants in the panel and I wish you a fruitful discussion. As Ambassador of Hungary to Serbia, I am very proud to hear that on the 14th December this year, the Serbian accession negotiations have reached a new phase. Cluster 4 was opened, including Chapter 27, which deals with environment and climate change. It is important that the results achieved by Serbia are now recognized in Brussels, and this decision will definitely speed up the process of European integration. It is vital that the EU presents a credible alternative for the future of Serbia that can also send a message to the entire region. I am also confident that more clusters could be opened in 2022 next year, and we shall see a faster pace in the process from now on. Hungary is a determined supporter of Serbia's EU accession. We believe that the Union is incomplete without the Western Balkans and especially Serbia. We rely on the Belgrade support in protecting the external borders of the EU, combating illegal migration and human trafficking, and fighting international organized crime. This cooperation also includes fields that bring peace and prosperity to our people, namely connecting our infrastructure network, facilitating the exchange of goods by building highways and railways. From our perspective, the EU will definitely benefit from Serbia's membership. Concerning recent events and the subject of the discussion today, let me point out that environmental issues know no borders, and it is for our mutual benefit that we initiate joint thinking in this field. Serbia has a lot to do when it comes to adapting the EU standards for environmental protection and combating climate change. But this is exactly an area where the citizens of the country and the entire region will benefit the most. It may be a very complicated and costly chapter, but this is something that will have visible effects. From a Hungarian perspective, we also know and understand the difficulties of adapting the legislation and the standards of the EU. We had a fair share of negotiations, which gave us valuable information that we want to share with our Serbian partners. This is not just an exchange of ideas, but I also hope that we can forge partnerships today that can be beneficial in our future as well. At the same time, this conference is a part of the conference on the Future of Europe series, which aims to involve everyone in the discussion about the future of our continent. We do believe when we talk about the next decades of the Union, we need to include prospective members who are likely to shape the EU in the years to come. It is with a hint of optimism when I say that the discussion needs to start today, and that is why we intend to channel the results of this conference into the broader European pool of ideas. Look at Serbia as a key player in the Western Balkans, who cannot be neglected and must be addressed in every relevant issue. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, allow me to say thank you for your participation in this conference. I am more than sure that we can share ideas today that will benefit everyone, and I wish you a pleasant and fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We received video contributions as well by two distinguished speakers. But before to open these videos, I should mention my dear colleague Robert Kassab, who is the technical organizer of this event from the embassy. We cannot see him, but he is the spirit of the conference, believe me. So let me present the video message by His Excellency Olivér Várhelyi, member of the European Commission responsible for neighbourhood and enlargement policy.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to address you at this conference. Pollution knows no borders. A simple look at the map shows why close cooperation between EU and Serbia is key on environmental issues like air, water or waste. I'm therefore particularly glad that today's meeting takes place only a few days after the opening of negotiations with Serbia under Cluster 4 on Green Agenda and Sustainable Connectivity. This is the beginning of a new era of EU-Serbia relations in policy areas that are so vital for citizens in Serbia and in the EU. The opening of Cluster 4, including Chapter 27 on environment and climate change, is a success in itself. It shows that Serbia has already reached a certain level of alignment with the EU's demanding legislation on environment and climate change. But let there be no mistake. The opening is only the beginning of a lot of more hard work for Serbia in the coming period. In its common position for Chapter 27, the EU member states have set strict requirements for Serbia to fulfill before it can become a full member of the European Union in priority areas such as air quality, water, waste management, and nature protection. These are areas that are very challenging for member states as well. Serbia will need to demonstrate effective implementation and enforcement of EU environmental legislation, such as environmental impact assessments, public access to information, and fight environmental crimes. On climate change, Serbia will need to continue its alignment with the EU acquis and put in place an appropriate framework for its implementation, notably for the European emissions trading system, setting a price for CO2 emissions. Serbia's strong reliance on coal will make Serbia's transition towards a clean energy sector and climate neutrality particularly challenging. Serbia will therefore need all available support for its EU accession path on environment and climate change, and the EU is here to support you. The European Commission's Economic and Investment Plan, accompanied by the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, mobilizes up to nearly 30 billion euros to modernize the infrastructure and the economy in the region. A new guarantee scheme will help leveraging private investments. One of the flagship projects specifically targets modernization of wastewater management in large and medium-sized towns in Serbia. The IPA cross-border cooperation program between Hungary and Serbia will provide funds for cross-border projects on environment, climate change and risk prevention of 19 million euros by 2027. TAIEX and twinning instruments are facilitating knowledge transfer from EU member states' administrations to their Serbian colleagues, including on environment and climate issues. In the new Horizon Europe program, worth 95.5 billion euros, Serbian researchers, innovators and research institutions can fully participate and cooperate with entities from EU member states. The opening of accession negotiations under Cluster 4 will deepen EU-Serbia relations and Serbia's reforms on the green agenda and sustainable connectivity. I look forward to seeing Hungary and Serbia intensifying cooperation on our joint EU environment and climate agenda. I wish you fruitful discussion to bring the common agenda forward, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, I would present the video message by His Excellency Emanuele Giaufret, the EU Ambassador to Serbia. Sorry for the technical problem. We tried to do again. Sorry.
This is a very good news for Serbia. The European Union has sent a very strong message that enlargement is moving, that when Serbia delivers on reforms, the European Union can respond and we can advance on our common project. In practice, as you know, the opening of negotiations in a cluster of chapters means that the substantial negotiation can start in these areas. This means that continued efforts by Serbia will be needed to fulfill all the necessary conditions to close those chapters. We often notice a big focus on the opening of clusters of chapters, but closing chapters is a key element to the conclusion of accession negotiations as a whole. So there is a lot of work ahead of us, with including the EU acquis inside the Serbian legislation in the fields covered by Cluster 4. By opening Cluster 4, Serbia received an acknowledgement of the progress made in the sectors of environment, transport, energy, and unchosen direction for further development of its economy. It means that harder work and deeper reforms for Serbia. It also means better coordination and political steer at the national and local level. As well, Serbia will need more transparency and improved public consultation. Cluster 4 is at the heart of all economies. Development of energy, environment and transport sectors in line with the European Union legislation and climate objectives will bring new investments, increase employment and will boost local market and small and medium enterprises. The Green Agenda for the Western Balkans is the renewed ambition from the European Union and the Western Balkan partners together to embark on greening the economies and start the energy transition. Citizens have a right to clean air, clean water, and we must work harder to fight global warming and its devastating effects. Following the opening of Cluster 4, including Chapter 27 for Environment and Climate, Serbia will need to continue alignment with the European Union environmental legislation and improve its implementation and enforcement. That means serious planning actions for various topics, with heavy homework ahead of us. In particular, Serbia will have to update its negotiating positions to incorporate new European acquis, that is, update its directive-specific implementation plans and add the directive-specific implementation plan missing in its initial position. Allow me to discuss now climate at large, because it is at the heart of the discussion today. The world chance of holding global temperature increase to 1.5 centigrades above pre-industrial level is at stake. The ravages of climate breakdown could become catastrophic, and some are already irreversible. COP26 in Glasgow gave us hope and confidence that we can provide a safe and prosperous space for humanity on this planet, but there is no time to relax. Hard work is still ahead. The European Union and its partners intend to work closer together to support Serbia in raising its climate ambitions and engage into concrete actions for the green agenda in Serbia. The agreement reached in Glasgow takes us a step closer in delivering on the commitment made at the Paris Agreement. The European Union's negotiation team, led by Vice President Frans Timmermans, has worked intensively to build a consensus with 190 countries in the Glasgow Climate Pact. International cooperation on climate has progressed during the Glasgow COP26. For instance, we saw major countries coming back to the table, like the United States of America. New net zero pledges like Israel, Vietnam, Lithuania and Montenegro, all by 2050, and Nigeria by 2060. We also saw a striking new cooperation framework agreed, like the US and China agreement. The European Union and the United States launched the Global Methane Pledge at COP26. And much more was actually done. The European Union is doing its part. In fact, in December 2019, following mobilization of youth and civil society as well as European Parliament election, the European Commission launched the European Green Deal. It is often understood as European Union answer to the 2015 Paris Agreement, but is actually much more than that. It's the European Union new growth strategy, making sure the COVID recovery is green and help us to build back better. Two examples of the Green Deal. The EU climate law, which is our commitment for at least 55% net greenhouse gas emission cut by 2030 and reaching climate neutrality by 2050. And the Fit for 55 package of ambitious proposals on climate and energy reforms sets the course to achieving those aims. Now, to come back to COP26, its outcome is keeping the Paris target alive, giving us a chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The pledges made by parties at COP26 bring us closer to limiting global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. The European Union helped to secure the agreement to compel parties with insufficient national determined contribution to revisit their ambitions by the end of next year, 2022. That is crucial for making sure that sufficient emissions reductions are achieved by 2030. Was this enough? This is a question that we have to ask ourselves. The test of these initial pledges in Glasgow will be how quickly and how effectively they can be translated from words into action. This decade is decisive for the success of our collective efforts, and we still need major emitters to cut their emissions further and faster if we are to limit global temperature rise to reach the 1.5 degree goal by the end of the century. The COP26 gave us hope and confidence. We can provide a safe, prosperous space for humanity on this planet, but there is no time to relax. Hard work is in front of us. The European Union will continue to share its policy experience and encourage to go further on coal and fossil subsidies globally. The European Union has pledged 1 billion over 5 years to support the Global Forest Finance Pledge, to help partners countries to protect, restore and sustainably manage forest worldwide. The European Union will step up on adaptation to climate. The European Union is the biggest contributor to the United Nations Adaptation Fund, having pledged already 100 million, almost a third of the record total of 350 million euros. And talking about adaptation, this is very important for Serbia. We know from several studies that Serbia and the Southeastern Europe are heating up faster than the global average. The region will be strongly affected by climate change. So what the European Union does to assist Serbia in this challenge? Citizens of Serbia, as worldwide, are increasingly concerned about the pollution and the climate change impact, such as forest fires and floods, and any extreme weather phenomenon. The European Union supports Serbia's accession process for environment and climate action in three main directions. First, investment. The European Union invested so far more than 400 million euros in only environmental protection programs, which allows Serbia to invest an additional 200 million in co-financing for a total of 600 million euros. Water supply, wastewater facilities, biodiversity, protection or solid waste management. The European Union has also invested additional 90 million euros in flood relief, flood protection and disaster risk reduction. The European funding is important, but certainly is not enough. We need also policy dialogue with government, municipalities, civil society, and thirdly, invest in people and institutions to increase capacity at national and local level to build and align legislation which is in line with the European Union acquis. We continue to program more funds in the coming years to reach these objectives. For instance, we intend to launch the Green Agenda initiative together with the UNDP and other partners this year. The idea is to build and to develop a pipeline of projects to support 1. Climate action, including decarbonization, 2. Circular economy, 3. Biodiversity, 4. Fighting pollution of air, water and soil, and 5th, sustainable food systems in rural areas. Serbia has adopted the Green Agenda Action Plan in October 2021 at the Brdo Summit in Slovenia, and it is agreed and important news. It is indeed very important to create together this dynamic and ensure that more partners can join the Green Agenda in Serbia. In this respect, I very much welcome Hungary to join the climate and environmental talks in Serbia. Thank you very much, everyone, and I wish a very fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much. I suppose the keynote speech and the video messages gave us great food for thought, and thank you for these messages, Your Excellency, and for the videos. And at this point, we would turn into the roundtable discussion part of our conference. If I may, I would present the panelists, the great panelists of today. Ms. Barbara Kovács, Head of Unit for International Climate Policy, Ministry for Innovation and Technology, Hungary. Mr. László Örlős, Director of Western Balkans Green Center, Budapest, Hungary. Mr. Dušan Čarkić, Assistant Minister, responsible among others, Green Deal and Sustainable Development, the Ministry of European Integration, Serbia. And last but not least, Ms. Sandra Dokic, Assistant Minister, Ministry of Environmental Protection of Serbia. My name is Péter Močári, a Hungarian seconded expert on European integration to the Ministry of European Integration of Serbia. So just some very short words before I open the floor for our dear panelists. Our plan is to give the floor for the panelists to have a presentation, one and after another, and the guests or guests could raise questions via comment function of Zoom platform, and I will present these questions to the participatory panelists after the round of presentation. The aim of our conference today is twofold. First, to help the Serbian preparation in this chapter. Another, to challenging the ideas to the Future of Europe conference. Or, as our keynote speakers mentioned, environmental issues knows no borders, and fighting against climate change is our global challenge. Environmental questions have several layers, and only one panel is not enough to discuss all of them. So that's why our focus today is given to the aspects related to the accession procedure of Serbia. So I ask the patience of our guests. I hope in the future we can continue this series of events with further panels and with further layers of environmental protection. So please understand the limitation of our focus today. Last week, the EU-Serbia Intergovernmental Conference opened the Cluster 4, the so-called Cluster 4, a new category that contains 4 chapters, environmental protection, and our topic today, energy, transport, and trans-European networks, the 4 closely related chapters. This was the first cluster opening under the new methodology, and this opening has opened the way for Serbia to work in this field, to work on harmonization. And as Commissioner Várhelyi as well as Ambassador Giaufret mentioned, the subsequent challenge is to close these chapters. Maybe it's much harder than to open it. It's not to start with a sad opening, but it was the common understanding of our keynote speakers. The environmental chapter may be the most dynamically developing one. The candidate countries had to harmonize the well-known acquis elements, but also to follow the newest progresses and also have international obligations. Acquis is a moving target. If I see the newest developments only this year, the Fit for 55 agenda, the 2030 climate target plan, or if I mention, like we mentioned that just we are after the COP26 conference. So at this point, I will give the floor of our first panelist, Ms. Barbara Kovács, about the newest developments and how the member state, which kind of experience the member state has on these new developments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. Thank you very much for a kind invitation and the possibility to represent the Hungarian Ministry for Innovation and Technology at this event. In my 15 minutes, I will share the actualities of international and EU climate policy, our lessons learned on behalf of Hungary as part of the EU climate policy regime so far, and some topics that might be particularly relevant concerning Serbia. Well, as you may know, even better than me, Hungary had its accession negotiations like 2 decades ago under quite different circumstances when climate policy in itself was much less focused in these set of negotiations. We had a general environment chapter with air quality, waste and water issues, which are still important, of course. But climate now is much more focused and also focused together with energy policy synergies. But what is still common in our view is that in most of the topics, you don't have to fulfill the EU requirements like today, 100%. It's quite fortunate. From EU side, as we could see, they will stand on the ground of reality and really seek a compromise for manageable deadlines and reasonable transitional periods if they see your openness towards understanding the EU motivations and general thinking in climate policy issues. So why did I say at the beginning that I would also speak about international climate policy? Well, because it is essential for us, for you, and for us as well, to understand EU climate policy motivations, and that comes from the international ground mostly. As we all know, currently the most important international document of climate policy is the Paris Agreement, which was adopted by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC parties, in 2015 and entered into force in 2016. It sets the basis of post-2020 global climate action with the overall objective of keeping global temperature rise well below 2 degrees and preferably below 1.5 degrees until the end of the century. However, it is not a convention, it is an agreement, and in order to make it fully operational, parties had to accept a dedicated rule book. That's what we call now the Katowice rule book, which was actually finalized this year in Glasgow. That's why the COP26 was so considered as successful. Well, the climate change mitigation ambition level of this Paris system follows a bottom-up approach, and that's very important. Parties have to communicate their midterm ambitions in the so-called nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, and their long-term ambitions in their long-term strategies, the LTSs. And what is the aim of the EU here? Well, the aim of the EU is to implement the Paris Agreement, to implement the Katowice rulebook, and in the meantime, to be a flagship party at the UNFCCC, a role model for other parties, and to be followed by the other parties in their high ambition level, especially the other big emitters. So if an NDC or a long-term strategy has to be updated, for example, you can be sure that the EU will aim to be the first one and the most ambitious one to submit it. If the UNFCCC calls upon developed country parties to enhance their international climate finance contributions to the developing country parties, you can be sure that the EU and its member states will have to make their utmost to do so and to be the largest contributors among the developed countries. If the UNFCCC says the possibility to make submission in a certain topic, even if not obligatory, the EU will make it. So what you should definitely take away from this is that if you, when you access the EU, you access a green club, basically, with significant priorities of climate policy. So you will have to really represent at the EU negotiations that you are willing to make climate policy as a priority for you. Speaking more internally, so about the EU internal climate policy, the revised NDC of the EU is now translated into EU language, is the Fit for 55 package, of course, which aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% until 2030 compared to 1990 levels. As we know, our original NDC from 2015 aimed to achieve a 40% reduction. Well, in order to reach this, a complex draft package was published by the EU in July, which consists of like 17 different dossiers. But the negotiations among member states and the EU, as we know, are still ongoing. Now, the most delicate part of the package is the proposed extension of the EU emission trading system, which now affects the largest installations, industrial installations. They would like to extend this to the residential and road transport sector, which we, Hungary and many other member states, primarily the Visegrad Force, oppose as it is an essential principle for us that the costs of the ambitious climate action should be paid by the big emitters and not the households, not the families. But the negotiations are still ongoing, so we will see what will come out of this. The EU also has a long-term goal, which is also among the most ambitious one in the global level. Our long-term goal is that we aim to reach climate neutrality until 2050. Climate neutrality means that the total emissions are in balance with the total absorptions, primarily by the forests. Many EU member states, like Hungary as well, made a separate LTS, a separate long-term strategy, and climate neutrality pledge on national level as well. Most probably, an interim emission reduction target will be also defined for 2040, but that will come out only around the spring of 2024. On member state level, we had to prepare our, until 2020, our national energy and climate plans for the period between 2020 and 2030. And if I know well, that was also an initial requirement for the candidate countries to accession. But most likely also these national energy and climate plans need to be revised for member states in the years 2023 or 24. What I would like to also share is how we, Hungary, handle nowadays these strategic questions and how we plan to hold on to the level of EU climate ambition. Well, right after the Paris Agreement adoption and coming into force in 2016, we also made huge efforts to revise our own national climate change strategy. And finally, in October 2018, it was adopted. It sets a target of minus 40% GHG emission reduction until 2030. But it also has some minor objectives with an outlook until the long term, until 2050. Basically, like all of our strategies, is built on 3 pillars. There's a national decarbonization roadmap, a national adaptation strategy, and the partnership for climate awareness raising action plan. So we always build on a 3 pillar of mitigation, adaptation, and social awareness raising and inclusion. For the implementation of this climate change strategy, we also adapt in every 3 years a so-called climate change action plan with the concrete measures also set on these 3 pillars. Now we are in the period of the adoption for the second action plan among these. As I've already mentioned, it was obligatory for all member states, also for us, to prepare until 2020 a national energy and climate plan. In this one, well, the main climate relevant targets for 2030 include 40% greenhouse gas emission reduction, the share of renewable energy, which should reach 21%, and the at least 90% of electricity generated in Hungary should be decarbonized. So it's until 2030, it's a midterm target. And we also made on national level our long-term strategy with the pledge of becoming carbon neutral until 2050. And what is unique and is quite ambitious, that we also adopted a separate act on these targets. Especially the climate neutrality target, which is important in this aspect because there are very few countries now in the world that actually set as a legal commitment as well, not only in a strategy that they would like to become climate neutral until mid-century. So yes, and of course, apart from these, we we try to actively shape the EU common positions for the international negotiations, and also we try to take our share from the international climate financing as well as part of the EU. This is an important part, and with this aim, we established, for example, the Western Balkans Green Center as well. But maybe Mr. Örlős will, of course, tell more about this. At the end of my presentation, I would like to talk about an issue which might be very important at the Serbian negotiations as well. And this is the issue of the coal phase out or coal phase down. As you might have already heard at the COP26 climate change conference, and the Glasgow Climate Pact this year was quite landmark, and not only because of the completion of the Katowice rulebook, but also because this was the first time that the question of phasing down fossil fuel, especially coal, was presented in a COP-covered decision. There was quite a huge debate among parties, because most of the parties wanted to be represented in the text as coal phase out, so total phase out. But for the pressure of China and India, at the end, it was just phase down. It's a softer text. But still, it's a very important momentum that the parties recognized on global level for the first time, that phasing down coal is essential to reach our climate targets. For the EU, it is also a priority, and of course, because it has very huge social and economic impacts, member states can decide on a national level their target date for coal phase out, but they should decide something, especially in their national energy and climate plans. For Hungary, it was 2030, the latest, but possibly we can reach even earlier by the middle of this decade. To compensate this coal phase out and the phase out of other GHG intensive industries, the EU also created the Just Transition Fund, which will support in this upcoming period of multi-annual financial framework the socio-economic compensation activities, like the training, retraining of workers, recultivation of mines, green transport in the areas, support for households in the areas, and many activities like this. But the member states first will have to prepare territorial just transition plans for the relevant areas. So it's might also be very important to prepare for these. It is quite an issue for us as well. We have one last remaining coal-fired power plant. It's lignite, actually. It's the Matra power plant. It's located in the North Hungary region. And it is responsible for like 10% of our CO2 emissions. Therefore, the decarbonization and the full lignite phase out of this plant is essential for us in order to reach our strategic objectives. We will rely largely on the Just Transition Fund, but we also started even earlier another umbrella project in order to set the basis of the just transition in the Matra region. And it comes from the LIFE program of the EU. I don't know exactly if Serbia is already eligible for LIFE funds, but that also might be interesting, because I know member states will become earlier eligible to that fund before their accession to the EU. So maybe soon it can be an option as well. So we have a separate LIFE strategic integrated projects for decarbonizing the last remaining lignite-fired power plant of ours. It's a 9-year project coordinated by our ministry with all the relevant partners on national and local level as well. And now we are in the preparation phase, but in the 9-year we can support this transition procedure. Now we have made the decarbonization roadmap for the power plant, established for locals and all affected actors, the first National Co-Commission, and set the basis for the retraining program of workers and miners. In the later stages, like in the fourth, fifth year, we also plan to make a knowledge sharing among EU member states and also the Western Balkans. So we will be happy to share our best lessons learned from this project. And as far as I know, Serbia relies largely on coal production. So this might be very important for you as well. Well, for the first set, these would have been my thoughts, my main messages, but at a later stage, I will be happy to answer the questions as well. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for this great overview and the novelties and how a member state could react on these new developments. And of course, thank you for the perfect management of your time so I think we received some good ideas about the importance and very dynamic nature of this chapter. I could mention that even today, after the European Council, there is a meeting of ministers of environment in Brussels, a council meeting. So even after the closing of a traditional closing event of the year or the semester, there is a need for an additional meeting at ministerial level. The harmonization environmental chapter always needed huge investments, not only now, but also earlier in the time of the Big Bang accession, not only in real terms, but also in human capital, building new institutions, innovate and introduce new technologies, or changing the behavior of the consumers, put a great burden on the shoulders of the candidate countries. The best practices of the member states or the EU could give useful patterns, but I would turn to Mr. László Örlős. In your opinion, how a member state or a regional institution could help this procedure? Give you the floor to you.
Thank you, Péter. And actually, I'm also trying to be prudent in time management. Thank you for the invitation to Ambassador Pintér, and also I'm very pleased that I can be at this panel discussion alongside with Assistant Ministers Čarkić and Dokić. As Péter already hinted, I would give some thoughts and backgrounds relating to how a practical tool backed by a government, but about to mobilize private actors in Hungary as well as in the Western Balkans can be of help and accelerate EU accession and alignment with the acquis. And here, let me just have a quick personal history. I still can remember when I was sitting at the Ministry of Finance almost 20 years ago, when Hungary was having the accession talks, having the environmental chapter. I still can remember that, okay, it was an important issue from the point of view of the alignment with the EU acquis and legislation, but at the same time, it's also a matter of financing, co-financing, sovereign level, municipal level, also about absorption, because otherwise, if you cannot grow enough parallel to capacities, then you cannot really be successful in doing that. And actually, this is the space where the Western Balkans Green Center is trying to help with knowledge sharing and supporting capacity building and project preparation. But let me have just a general introduction about our center, why the Western Balkans. Barbara from the ministry already mentioned that Hungary is active in the international climate financing space. And actually the Western Balkans is one of the regions in Europe most heavily affected by the impact of climate change, and therefore strengthening efforts on climate proofing, resilience building, prevention and preparedness in the affected countries is really crucial. The Western Balkans Green Center is a recent and dynamic initiative by the government of Hungary under the authority of the Ministry for Innovation and Technology in close cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And we are about to scale up climate action and bankability in a neighboring region of strategic importance for Hungary. And here I would like to underline the bankability issue, because it's not enough to have project lists and project ideas, but we should know how to make it operational, how to prepare them for bankability, for financing. So we, as a Green Center, started our operation 2 years ago. We have created a solid institutional background for our activities, including our strategy and also a robust monitoring and evaluation framework based on international best practices. Serbia has the largest share, I think not surprisingly, in our project portfolio with 18 projects and a total budget of close to 3 billion euros in these 2 years in the context of project preparation and capacity building. This is the result, I think, of the outstanding high level as well as business and economic relations between the two countries. These projects cover a large portfolio of sectors such as renewable energy, water management, or smart cities. We have established a track record of cooperation with relevant international and regional actors. This is very important for us, that we are a bilateral tool, but we are positioning ourselves in the international setting. So those international actors are the multilateral development banks active in the region, the Vienna-based energy community, and others, as well as other domestic and international stakeholders in the green economy space. We have substantial cooperation with relevant public and private actors in the local actors in the Western Balkans as well. Just to give a recent example where we are focused on, this is relating to a recently adopted relevant Hungarian green strategy that addresses the role of hydrogen and recognizes its role in the overall decarbonization of the economy. The hydrogen economy is a rapidly developing industry with high return potential. So exploiting the potential of cooperation in this area could be to the benefit of both countries. So this is one recent example where we are trying to put more emphasis and trying to be focused on. In this sector, we already identified several exact opportunities for cooperation, such as transportation, knowledge exchange programs, or joint research project, and we are trying to accelerate the cooperation in this field with the relevant government stakeholders in this space. But let me give you a little bit of background regarding our project generation scheme. Also, the Center of Excellence run by the center and also just a few words about a concept relating to investments. So regarding the grant funding program that we are running, based on local consultations with authorities and also international development partners active in the Western Balkans region, as I said, there is a considerable lack of eligible bankable green projects to be financed and implemented in the Western Balkans. Therefore, as part of the Ministry for Innovation and Technology's international financial scheme, we are implementing a grant program with a total budget of close to 5 million euros in 2 years. The current project portfolio consists of 36 projects covering all the 6 economies in the Western Balkans. Actually, the fourth call for applications of the program with a total grant amount of 1.2 million euros is closing today. We are looking forward to receiving high quality project proposals, and based on this latest call, we are adding 10 to 15 projects to the current project portfolio. So we will be ending up with roughly 45-50 projects for all the 6 economies in the region, and we are expecting that the program will continue next year. So those projects that we are implementing are generally running for a year or a year and a half, and support local climate adaptation and mitigation measures in the sectors of water and waste management, sustainable energy, agriculture, nature conservation, and digitalization. I think those are really well aligned with the cluster 4 and the sub-chapters of that has already been mentioned by all the contributors today. Through our grant funding program that we are implementing by the end of this year, we are calculating an investment with a total value of approximately 200 million euros that are prepared with the support of our center. And as I said, a bulk amount of those projects, actually around 40% in terms of the number of projects, are implemented in Serbia. Also, turning to the second pillar of our activities, which I think is very important in terms of the EU acquis absorption capacity problem, is the Center of Excellence in Green Transition. So actually, when it comes to visible actions in the climate space, international partnerships is of utmost importance for us. Therefore, the Ministry for Innovation and Technology, through our center, is also operating a capacity building program together with the Vienna-based Energy Community Secretariat. This is because regulatory convergence, aligning legislation with the EU acquis, is a crucial part of all dimensions of the EU enlargement. As already mentioned, under Chapter 27, enlargement countries have to comply with EU law provisions in addressing climate change, water and air quality, but also waste management, nature protection, pollution, chemicals, noise, and civil protection as well. And based on recent reports and the status of alignment, a lot has to do in the whole Western Balkans. Actually, there are huge investments needs to complete this exercise. So this is an important focus for us. Therefore, we are supporting capacity building and technical assistance projects as a useful tool to share relevant Hungarian, but also Central European and EU expertise as well to foster knowledge exchange with countries in the process of EU accession. The Center of Excellence is a dedicated focal point, converging relevant knowledge and expertise in the fields of generally the environment and climate change related legislation. And we are supporting this function as a knowledge hub, as I mentioned, in close cooperation with the Energy Community Secretariat on the following areas. So we are supporting development and implementation of national energy and climate plans, just transition of coal regions, and also transition of legal framework towards climate resilience. Actually, the first joint project of the Center of Excellence is the so-called Clean Air Regions Initiative, CARI in abbreviation, which helps Western Balkans municipalities prepare their air quality strategies and action plans and bring them closer to the investment stage. So far, 13 municipalities have joined the initiatives. Also, Novi Sad from Serbia has joined the initiative. We think that this is a good platform for practical help to support municipalities in creating their strategies. And as I said later on, this will help them to realize investments. But in the broader context, the Center of Excellence is implementing the CARI program. We had our first workshop in Szeged, close to the Serbian border, back in September, and we are widely recognizing the success of the initiative. As I said, a couple of additional municipalities already acceded to the initiative after the original launching of the program. We are implementing webinars, useful presentations by Hungarian, but also international, widely acknowledged high quality air experts in the air quality space. And regarding next year plans of the program, we will provide an opportunity to evaluate and share air quality improving measures, best practices and experiences to reduce air pollution, but at the same time also addressing issues related to public outreach, data collection, and the application of innovative solutions. Beyond the Clean Air Regions program, we are in the pipeline the sustainable finance as a program on the sovereign level and also on the corporate level, as well as the green jobs, which is an important issue when it comes to coal phase out. This initiative, we expect that this will be rolled out in cooperation with IFC, so the World Bank Group, and also other international partners are expected to join this topic. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my intervention, we are also working on a hydrogen economy potential cooperation with the Serbian partner. But just as a concluding remark, because I think I'm approaching my time limit, is about the concept of a Western Balkans Green Investment Fund. So the Western Balkans Green Center was the first step by the government towards a future regional Western Balkans Green Investment Fund that would be with adequate resources and a diverse set of financial instruments for project financing. The Green Fund's objective will be to catalyze private sector investments in the Western Balkans through the development of projects that generate return on investments. And as I said, this pillar is still in the concept phase. but is needed to finance the required investments and to move forward from a project preparation phase to realizing investments, which is crucial in terms of realizing the carbon neutrality targets, where the whole Western Balkans and Serbia is also contributing and committing itself. So we are still working in this concept. Currently as a government initiative by Hungary, but in close cooperation with the potential private sector partners, domestic ones, and also international ones. Thank you very much for the attention, and I'm of course ready to answer any questions and discussing any comments.
László, very much for your great intervention, and also for the great time management as well. I think it's a very useful. It was a very useful contribution to present the possible instruments of financing environmental investment and some of these practices and good solutions. Just a technical sentence that we are waiting for questions, but I would like to ask our great participants to send the questions via chat function if it's possible, and if not, we will try to give the floor to them, but it would be more useful to send them via chat. So we will return to the questions after this round. As we received some information about novelties of the acquis, investments and possible support of investing to environment, I would turn to my dear colleague, Mr. Dušan Čarkić, Assistant Minister, Ministry of Pure Integration. How do you see these challenges from the point of view of a candidate country, or how do you prepare for these challenges after the opening of the environmental chapter? Floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. At the beginning, I want to thank the organizers on their kind invitation to participate at this very important event, whatever you want, especially from the perspective of Ministry of European Integration, and I believe the whole government. Of course, I'm glad that I can inform all participants about the Serbia's Cluster 4, Green Agenda and Sustainable Connectivity opening, especially because it comes during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is done according to the new methodology, and it summarizes in itself 4 chapters, very important for our country and very important for the whole region. That's transport policy, energy, trans-European network and environment, and the climate change. Of course, my colleagues already mentioned all those chapters and mentioned our cluster opening, but I would like to tell you more about this. As we all know, question on climate change is highly important to every country. It is a global question where there is no room for weakest link. It is important to work together and cooperate with every sector and every part of society. Especially cross-border cooperation should be emphasized, and I'm very grateful to the Hungarian colleagues in their support and all help they're providing to all of us. The most important topic to the climate change are circular economy. We know we have to educate entrepreneurs and importance, value and obligations of decarbonization, renewable energy, clean air, green transportation and green urbanism. And I believe my colleague Sandra is going to tell more about those topics. It is important to highlight that during the Western Balkans Sofia summit held on 10th November 2020, Republic of Serbia signed Sofia Declaration, the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans that align with the EU Green Deal. Declaration is to support and accelerate the changes and proceeds in the region with the overarching goals and addressing climate change. According to the mentioned above, the Republic of Serbia on October 6, 2021 signed the EU Western Balkan Summit, which was held on Brdo pri Kranju in Slovenia, an action plan for the implementation of the Sofia Declaration on the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans for the period of 2021 to 2030. These action plans represents one of the outputs of the Sofia Declaration, the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, and is used as a tool to guide its implementation. It embodies the putting the words into action paradigm by identifying concrete steps and supporting the organization, as well as defining an indicative time frame for each implementable measures. It sets the framework to coordinate and support its proper implementation and monitor the progress in its regard. The document covers the period, as I said, from 2021 to 2030, and it is designated to be periodically revised according to the needs and the new priorities without decreasing the level of ambition. Any prolongation of the indicative timeframes will need to be justified. The 10-year perspective of the action plan allows its alignment with the most important international and European policy objectives, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the European Energy and Climate Policy Framework for 2030, the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, and all other things. The action plan will be revised twice, by the end of 2024 and by the end of 2027, using the same consultative process with the best Western Balkan authorities and its partner regional organizations, thereby analyzing the achieved progress against the AP objectives. The action plan is structured so as to reflect the 7 components of the Sofia Declaration: climate action, energy, transport, circular economy, pollution, sustainable agriculture and nature, and biodiversity protection, grouped into 5 pillars. Of course, one more thing I would like to say is that the new organization of the Ministry of European Integration, in accordance with all needs and in accordance with the new methodology, we established new department for the Green Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. So our perspective and our devotion is focused on the Green Agenda and all those related things. So once again, thank you all, and may you have a blessed holidays. And of course, if you have any additional questions, I'm here to try to answer them all.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this useful overview. I think it's new information for many of our guests, mainly for the Hungarian guests. And now, as we started with the ministry responsible for environment and climate change in Hungary, I would turn to Ms. Sandra Dokic as a representative of the Ministry of Environment of Serbia to give us her ideas about the preparation in the environmental chapter, or projects like the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans as again a new phenomena in this field. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's my pleasure to participate here, and I want to thank Hungary for supporting opening this Cluster 4 and especially Chapter 27. And we are quite aware that a lot of activities are ahead of us. And the first we need to do is to update our negotiation position, because our negotiation positions is from January 2020. And in the meantime, we know that some regulations can be adopted in European Union. So it's quite, as you mentioned, moving target. So we need to adjust it. And the first what we will do is to adopt this the SIPs directive specific implementation plans in order to start to negotiate with European Union about transitional periods, because we are quite aware that we will need some transitional period for some very, very demanding areas like wastewater, air quality probably, but we will see about it. But about solid waste management, it's quite sure that we will need something like that. But okay, let's start negotiate, and we will see how where we will reach. What is important for us at this moment is the green agenda. Why green agenda? Because it's go beyond the chapter 27 and also cluster 4. And that's why we are really dedicated to implement the action plan for a green agenda RCC developed, and we all adopted from Western Balkan countries. And what we as a ministry are doing right now, we actually we have the draft action plan for implementation of the regional plan. That is something what is really important for us. Because we want to coordinate all these green agenda process and activities. And we know that for that purpose, we have established working group within the Ministry of Environmental Protection. We lead this working group. We have 66 participants from 18 institutions. And we already had 2 meetings before and after this action plan we received from RCC, but somehow at this moment we were quite prepared, because we already had this our, let's say, we call it some quite big Excel table where we listed all activities, institutions in charge for some particular activities with the deadlines. So that will be something we will start really related with green agenda. And also, I think it's worth to mention that we have this IPA project. It's a green agenda for Serbia, through which we are planning to implement some activities. And for example, we are planning through this project to develop and adopt green agenda for Serbia, and the action plan is going to be environmental strategy. The umbrella strategy, which will be in line with green agenda pillars. And the next year we are planning to develop and to adopt it as soon as is possible after we finish that. And of course we need to have in mind that the next year will be election year, and so we need to carefully plan all our activities. Also, it's important that through this project, we are planning to develop your specific roadmap at the project level. So it's going to be really important document. Is going to serve as a guiding document for example, business sector. But I think that it's much easier for you to follow what we are doing and what is our next activities, maybe to go through the pillars. So because you focus, Barbara, especially on decarbonization, that is something we know it's going to be really difficult, and we are quite aware that we need to have a really good cooperation or coordination between 2 ministries, especially our ministry, who is in charge for climate action activities, and Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Mining and Energy, because we need to adopt 2 main documents. Our ministry is in charge for low carbon development strategy and national adaptation plan. that is in accordance with the climate change law we adopted this year in March. So in accordance with this law, we need to develop and to adopt bylaws. And the deadline for that is the March next year. And we have only a few months, of course, and the low carbon development strategy and the national adaptation plan is something what in accordance with the law needs to be adopted up to March 2024. But we are quite aware that that is something what we need to speed up all this process regarding decarbonization. So we are planning to adopt it earlier. And when we're talking about this climate change actions, it's necessary to mention the Ministry of Mining and Energy. They are developing a national energy climate plan. So why that is important? Important because we will have two main documents related with the same issues. In this national climate and energy plan and low carbon development strategy, we will use the same targets, and those documents need to be adjusted and needs to be harmonized. That's why we already developed our low carbon development strategy. It's in a draft version of this document, and we started to negotiate, not to negotiate, but to one open discussion with this Ministry of Mining and Energy, because we know that we have to be on the same side, and those documents are important for both ministries and for the whole country. And that's why we actually send them the document. They can see our targets. We are ambitious. We are quite ambitious. And what is the most important, we need to be really realistic. What is achievable for Serbia? We are really dedicated to this decarbonization process. But as you were mentioned also, that we are we are in a situation that in an energy sector, this coal is really important for us, and it's really need to have a really good strategy how to phase out this coal and to not jeopardize energy here in Serbia, because that is what is really important, having in mind all this situation, what happened the last few months, and more about this energy crisis. So we need to be careful, but we are really dedicated to follow the Europe and their ambitions. So this strategy, I mentioned the deadline, but the important is from our ministry that a law on climate change transposes ETS, and also a monitoring and reporting verification system. That is something what we, with these bylaws, will establish. It's important to monitor and to see where we are with all these emissions. And officially, of course, at this moment, we know the situation, but we need to establish the system. But we are aware that also the CBAM is something what will happen. That is something what we heard from the Europe, and we also want to be prepared for this kind of measure. And that's why, because until we become the member state, we will not be obliged in the ETS system. Emission trade system. So we know that the CBAM will be something what will hit the Serbia. And that's why in the next few months, we are planning with the support of World Bank to develop the analysis how the CBAM will hit the Serbia, and what sector, and how we will react on that. So we are quite aware what actually CO2 emissions means to Europe, and also we are aware that we need to have some actions in that regard. So regarding decarbonization, I think that in the next few months we will also, but they mentioned maybe till the end of this month, we will see the draft version of energy and climate, national energy or climate plans, and then we will see where we are with all those two documents. That is regarding the decarbonization, but I think it's important for you to know that we already started with implementation. For example, my ministry, we invested the money from the budget, changing the boilers in public institutions and individual households, what actually is related not only with the air quality, but with the energy efficiency and air pollution, because we had the main issue about that. And also we know that Ministry of Energy invested a lot of energy efficiency and also in renewables. So we have some parallel actions, and we think that probably the next year is going to be much more situation with air pollution. And also we have a lot of credit line, and one of them is from EBRD related with the heating plant in Kragujevac. Because we know that they are really suffering from air pollution there. So we have a lot of activities from our budget sources, and that is something what we are planning to continue the next year. And all additional funds are really available to continue with all these activities. And what is important to say that everything what we are doing is transparent. The local self-governments they are apply for these sources, and they are the one who are implementing that on the field. And so far we are quite satisfied how they react, because they need to already have prepared the documentation, etc. And there was even such a public calls happened for the first time this year. They were quite prepared. So we think that the next year it would be much better, because it's not so easy to absorb the funds. We know that we can provide money as much as we need, but it's really difficult to implement, because everybody needs to be prepared for that. And we are really quite happy how they reacted and how the things are going on in the field. That was related to decarbonization. Now we also mentioned circular economy, one really important document. We will start this week, I think, with public hearing process. That is the circular economy program. That is something what we will adopt for the first time for this government, and we will have the action plan for 3 years. And beside this program, the one which is most important, I'm talking about strategic documents, who is what is really necessary to have to know where we are going and what is our strategy for the next period, is Waste Management Program also. It's going to be from 2022 to 2030, but in the next 3 months we will develop also action plan. Why that is important? Because we really want to focus on source separation, recycling, and regional infrastructural development. We are quite aware, because we know that we have our multi-annual investment financial plan we are adopting right now, because the previous one covers the wastewater treatment plants, the solid waste management, the water supply, and now we have the draft version of this, let's call it MIF. We cover the air quality, the chemicals, the INSPIRE, and the rest of the area. And we know for now that the future investment should be about 12 billion euros to cover all this mentioned area. So when we're talking about the solid waste, the solid waste management, we know that about 1.2 billion euros is necessary to invest in order to cover everything what is related with solid waste management. Of course, Serbia knows that we cannot finance everything through our national budget. So we really rely deeply on IPA funds. And also we have some loans from development banks, EBRD loan, for example, for 8 regions. And that is something what we are working on. It's important to share with you when we're talking about this capacity that more than 120 local self-government are involved implementation in all wastewater treatment plant projects, and more than 80 in solid waste management projects. So they are really on the field. They know that everything what we are planning to do as Republic of Serbia, they know that it's going to happen in their local self-government area. That is something what is and we know that it's not easy for them, that they will need a really different kind of support, because it's not so easy to find the experts who knows this and who can cover all these fields. And that is something what can be our possible cooperation between our two countries. When we're talking about the pollution, I would just go through air quality, that also in the next 2 weeks we will adopt the air quality program. That is something is going to be also the strategic document, and it will serve from next year up to 2030 with the action plan on 3 years. And within this program, we have the different type of scenarios, and we know that we will need a lot of money to invest in this area. But when we are talking about, because MIF is something what already it's this draft version of this MIF, it shows how that more than 2 billion needs to be invested in this sector, but the mainly will be private investments, not so much investments from the state, from national budget, but private investments in order to improve air quality. Also, we need to identify we need to focus also on IPPC installations permits. That is something what is in a period ahead of us. We know that we have maybe less than 20% permits were issued in IPPC, and we really need to reach the target, and this kind of support is also important and necessary for us. Regarding water quality, I mentioned that we identified that 4 billion euros needs to be invested in order to build more than 300 wastewater treatment facilities, and also 11,000 kilometers sewage network. That is the infra. We're talking about a really huge infrastructural project, and we know it's not so easy first to prepare all documentations for all these infrastructural projects, then to implement, to build, and what is the most important, after that, these plans need to continue to work on, and the people in a local self-government needs this kind of support, that the experts can help them how to manage all these facilities we are planning to build in the next, let's say, 10 years. So also we have a lot of credit lines based on this water quality, KfW, SEB, I know also the Hungary support, some investments in wastewater treatment plants, and we have this SEB loan, And we are right now as a ministry with the PIM, Project Implementation Management Office. There are implementing agency related with this SEB loan, where we are planning in 26 municipalities to build wastewater treatment plants. So in a previous period, we actually, what we are as a ministry from national budget was supported, yes, to it was to develop technical documentation for all this wastewater treatment plant. Now they need to be somehow revised, and now we have the documentations where they can start with the public procurement process in this wastewater treatment plant area. So also the sustainable agriculture, they're participating actively in this green agenda working group, and because we want to be efficient and more operational, we are planning to have more pillars implementation meetings that we will not gather the whole working group. It's a lot of people participating there, but we will focus on particular pillars, and we will go through their activities, and we think that the mid of February we will have everything identified, and we will know what is our activities in a future period. We will see from a different ministry what part of their activities is not covered with different kind of supports, and what activities are necessary to be financed through different sources. Also, nature and biodiversity protection is for us is important, because we are focused on Natura 2000 network. That's something what will be what is actually obligation within the chapter 27, and because of that we also adopted nature protection program with the action plan for the 3 years. And what is our target? Yes, to have more protected territories, but what that mean? That from one hand it's important to have a protected area, but that means that we will have more restrictions on some activities. So somehow we really need to harmonize all this. I think that was the I tried to cover all these topics, but do not take too much of your time. I just want to announce that next year we will have this multi-annual investment financial plan. We will present it to the donors, to development banks, and there in that MIF, it's important because it's easy to see what kind of support we need and what kind of project we will have, and with this project we will apply for, of course, IPA funds and some other funds which is available to us. So that is for now. If you have any question, I'm here also to answer on everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sandra. It was a great presentation of the technical details, not only the action needed for harmonization, but also co-financing problems, absorption problems, and for me it was very interesting and important to mention the transparency of these actions, this preparation, and the contact with local governments is also an important part of the preparation. So thank you for the panelists for this round. And now I would give back the floors to the panelists if they want to react to each other's presentation. And after, I would present the questions that we received so far. First, if somebody wants to react to the presentations, please floor is open. Okay, if not, I'm just checking the questions. We have a question from by Daniel Ilmer and András Deli from the UTB Envirotech Ltd. They raised two questions. They had a meeting to the Serbian delegation on Planet Budapest 2021 with Secretary Mr. Alexander Damjanovic. He introduced us Clean Serbia program, which includes building of 77 new wastewater treatment plants until the end of 2025. We would like to know which project could be joined by engineering companies like ours. We are a Budapest-based engineering company specialized to planning, engineering, and constructing of wastewater treatment plants. And the second, practically linked to the first, what kind of other projects are in preparation regarding the wastewater treatment plants? And the other question from Anna Keller is, I read it, is there any action plan for war waste in Serbia? So that's two questions we have so far. I don't know if you could react now, or we try to react to these questions later in writing.
I just want to mention, yes, they say about State Secretary Alexander Damjanovic. Yes, I just didn't mention, but that is something what I thought that you probably know, that investing in this green infrastructural project is not only within our ministry, Ministry of Environmental Protection. We also have the Ministry of Infrastructure. It's Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport, I don't know, but infrastructure, okay. And they are also, and State Secretaries from this Ministry of Infrastructure, Alexandra Damjanovic. She mentioned the Clean Serbia, that is the Chinese loan. And it will cover more than 70 wastewater treatment plants, but the mostly the small one plants, not the bigger one. And they are planning to finish everything up to 2025. So I think that this week, I think we will have one meeting with the Ministry of Construction, and we will see we will have the list about all these wastewater treatment plants which are covered from different sources. So we will see what is free, and then we will make a list, and we will we will try to find the sources for the wastewater treatment plants which is not covered. So that is something what will happen in next period.
Thank you very much for the answer. Okay, anybody else? We have as well as a hand raised, and I try to ask these dear guests to contribute in writing, but he has not contributed so far. So I don't know whether we can. No, I think we cannot use this option now. I promise that for the next conference we'll practice this approach as well. So in this moment, I would sum up our conference today. I hope it's not an one-off event of these environmental panels and one of meeting of the experts from both sides in European integration questions. Our plan to continue this series, and it would be great to continue in traditional physical conference, because also an aim of this kind of events to promote the contact among the participants, the experts, and it's a bit harder in this sterile digital environment. So I would like to thank this today event for our host, Ambassador Pintér, as well as our distinguished panelists. I would like to mention Csenge Dobrai, who on behalf of the Institute of Foreign Affairs and Trade gave us the professional environment for this event, and last but not least, Robert Kasab on behalf of the embassy, who did the greatest part of the organization of today. And of course, thank you for all who made the conference possible with the cooperation, with video messages, etc. So thank you very much. I hope we'll see you soon. And thank you for the guests. And that's all for today. Goodbye.